We are examining a specific financial artifact, a single banking ledger spanning the 31 days of October 2011. At the top level, this account carries a Private Client Checking Plus designation. In institutional banking, this product class implies standard high-net-worth consumer activity, routine living expenses, and predictable wealth management. But examining the checking account summary block reveals a severe deviation from normal consumer behavior. Look at the macro liquidity drain. An opening balance of just over $6 million drops abruptly to under $4 million by month's end. Over that exact same period, the account recorded $55.74 in incoming deposits. Against that, we see gross outgoing payments of nearly $2 million. That creates a 35,000 to 1 ratio of outgoing capital to incoming deposits. A normal individual, even a vastly wealthy one, uses a checking account to aggregate and hold liquidity. This ledger operates in reverse. It functions as a high-velocity capital disbursement node, processing and masking corporate-scale financial activity. To understand the actual utility of this account, we have to abandon traditional assumptions about personal banking. Instead, we must use forensic mapping to trace the specific geographical and sectoral targets of that missing $1.97 million. The first step in deconstructing a disbursement node is isolating the international wire transfers from the domestic liquidity flows. This map visualizes the primary geographic split found in the ledger's data. The capital moves in two distinct directions, internationally to the United Kingdom and domestically toward the U.S. and Caribbean territories. Within the first week of the month, a rigid international transaction pattern emerges. Looking at this October 5th entry, we see a foreign remittance debit explicitly targeting Bournemouth, UK. The currency conversion mechanics are deliberate. $67,305 are withdrawn to generate a structured sum of exactly 50,000 euros. A perfectly round, cross-border conversion of this size requires specific institutional execution, and it repeats in this exact manner on October 5th, 6th, 11th, and 25th. That structured European execution sits in stark contrast to the account's domestic footprint. The domestic side of the ledger relies heavily on high-volume Fed wires routed southward into the Caribbean, predominantly hitting institutional banks in Puerto Rico. The transaction lines show repeated, consecutive capital injections utilizing First Bank PR as the clearinghouse. The geography reveals two distinct, simultaneous operational objectives. The entity controlling this account is actively pushing capital into both a structured European channel and a dense Caribbean network at the exact same time. Geography only explains the physical routing. A complete forensic model requires categorizing the specific vendor sectors receiving these funds. The first major sector isolated in the ledger is high-level professional services, specifically elite legal defense. On October 12th, a Fed wire transfers capital directly into a specialized trust account for the defense firm of Martin G. Weinberg. An IALTA, or Interest on Lawyers Trust Account, is a specific fiduciary vehicle. Capital deposited into an IALTA is strictly staged to secure future legal defense representation or fund legal settlements. The very next day, a second massive legal retainer payment hits the trust account of Black, Srebnick, Kornapan, and Stumpf, establishing a clear staging pattern. The second major sector funded by this account sits at the opposite end of the spectrum from white-collar legal defense, heavy construction and industrial infrastructure. This October 6th Fedwire targets Lake Havasu Gunite and Concrete, representing a high-dollar industrial capital expenditure. This single concrete payment is part of a much broader industrial vendor network scattered across the 31 days. Toward the end of the month, we hit a cluster of specialized infrastructure vendors, including Caribbean Protection Systems and Abbott and Linehan Mechanical. When you combine industrial concrete, commercial trucking, and marine refrigeration systems targeting a Caribbean geography, the expenditure profile aligns with a massive island infrastructure build-out. The vendor categorization confirms that this checking account operates as an unregistered corporate clearinghouse. It is simultaneously executing capital-intensive offshore island development and quietly staging high-powered legal defense funds. To understand the administrative control over this node, we have to shift our analytical focus from the destinations of the capital to the specific timing of its release. This calendar heat map visualizes the transaction density for the entire month. The data shows extreme vertical volume spikes centralized tightly around October 12th through 13th and October 24th through 25th. This proves the payments are deliberately batched. The node is operating on centralized accounts payable processing days rather than facilitating spontaneous consumer spending. During these peak volume spikes, the entity strategically hides internal network transfers among the hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing outward to external vendors. Buried inside the massive October 13th payment batch, we find a specific internal personnel transfer directed to Karyna Shuliak. A book transfer is an internal accounting mechanism. It allows for the instantaneous, completely unwired movement of capital between two accounts held at the exact same banking institution. The clustered batching of payments, seamlessly integrating off-grid internal book transfers with industrial-scale external outlays, confirms this is a highly managed administrative financial apparatus. We return to the central paradox of the ledger. How do we interpret a personal checking account executing nearly $2 million in outflows over a single month? This Sankey diagram illustrates the complete forensic reconstruction of the account's liquidity drain. The $1.97 million in outgoing capital fractures into three heavily engineered pathways. The geographic routing strategy physically divides the capital between structured European foreign exchanges and a high-volume Caribbean Fedwire network. Within those routes, the capital executes dual sectoral goals, funding heavy, capital-intensive island development while preemptively packing millions into legal defense trusts. Utilizing a private client banking tag creates a disconnect between the institutional label and the actual activity. It categorizes industrial-scale disbursements within a product designed for personal consumer use. In forensic accounting, the label on an account is secondary to the data. The velocity, geography, and sector of the outflows reveal the operational reality of the entity.